Hello. Okay, I'm just kind of getting set up here. Trying to decide what we're doing next week or this coming week. Right now I'm leaning towards Malachi. I think it would actually be a great segue going into the Gospel of Luke at our church. And so, that said though, we are in John. I'm going to read verse 12 again, but we did that last time. From then on, Pontius Pilate sought to release him. That was Pilate's goal. But the Jews cried out, saying, "If you let this man go, you are not Caesar's friend. Whoever makes himself a king speaks against Caesar." So they're trying to manipulate him. When Pilate therefore heard that saying, he brought Jesus out and sat down in the judgment seat in a place that is called the Pavement, but in Hebrew, Gabbatha. Now it was the preparation day of the Passover, about the 6th hour, and he said to the Jews, "Behold your king." Now, lots of interesting stuff to try and go through here. Let's see here. So to start, we see the word judgment seat. That's bema seat. That's the same word or term when we talk about standing before the judgment seat of Christ. So here is Christ before the judgment seat, whereas one day we all will stand before the judgment seat of Christ to give an account for what we've done, whether good or bad. And it's the 6th hour. Now, one thing that definitely makes this awfully confusing, probably for the English reader, is that John is actually using Roman time. Quite often when we read the Gospels, we're reading Jewish time, but this is in Roman time. Bumped the camera. We know that because if you just put the Gospels together, there's no way that this would have been 6 in Jewish time. That'd be noon. It would have been much earlier than that. This would be 6 a.m. And so Jews started their clocks at 6. So often when you read the Bible, it's the 3rd hour. You can find out, okay, 6 plus 3, it's 9 a.m. That would be like Peter and the day of Pentecost. It's only the 3rd hour of the day. It's 9 a.m. But for the Romans, they ran off the clock that we run off of. Starts at midnight. So the 6th hour for a Roman clock would be 6 a.m. Remember, he was taken trial in the middle of the night, and he was brought to Pilate in the middle of the night, essentially. I mean, early morning before the sun. And it is the preparation day. So I'm not going to go down the long rabbit trail about the Passover, the feast. I've read some very interesting documentary works on was the Last Supper Passover? Or was that a meal the day before Passover? And there are these Haggadahs and these things that are done often even before the Passover. So there's a lot of interesting stuff to tie in there. But this being the preparation day, the idea is that this is the day that the priests are going to go and sacrifice the lambs. And so that was one of the reasons they didn't want to get defiled by stepping foot into the praetorium, is because they had the job of going out and sacrificing those lambs. And so he says, "Behold your king." Verse 15, but they cried out, "Away with him! Away with him! Crucify him!" Pilate says, "Shall I crucify your king?" And the chief priests answered, "We have no king but Caesar." I don't know why I immediately thought of Peter cursing, saying, "I don't know the man." Here are the Jews saying, "Away with him, we have no king but Caesar." It's amazing what people will do when they're under distress, when they're upset, when they're angry. The mean and weird and crazy things we will say when we're upset. I'm sure no one married has ever experienced this. The idea that we start saying things that are just wacko and crazy. Jews saying they have no king but Caesar? That's bonkers. But the idea is they're just so furious and frustrated with Jesus, they'll say anything to get him crucified. And so often we're the same way. You know, it's just a good reminder that we're supposed to be slow to speak and slow to wrath. And one of the ways to make that happen is to be swift to listen. Man. So, I don't know about you guys, but yeah, I have to bite my tongue sometimes because you don't want to say those things that you shouldn't be saying. And it is a good lesson for all of us. When we're angry, stop talking. Shut your mouth and just focus on the Lord. We'll say things we're going to regret, and we can't take them back once they're said. But these priests are saying, we have no king but Caesar. So, blows my mind. But it says, then they delivered him to them to be crucified. So they took Jesus and led him away. If you go to Israel, you can walk down what's called the Via Dolorosa. It's the road that the Catholic Church and tradition believes that Jesus walked down. And it'll lead you to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which is where, in Catholic tradition, Jesus was crucified and buried. I've been there a couple times. I think I even went in the church a couple times. I've gone at least once. It's a magnificent church. I'll tell you what. I mean, of all the buildings I saw in Israel, going inside the Church of the Holy Sepulchre and looking up at that ceiling, just like, it's just weird seeing so many, it's huge. Very cool. But it doesn't quite line up for me as far as the gospel account and where Jesus would have been crucified and buried. But the road is cool to walk on. And you will see pilgrims, Christians, Catholics, Orthodox coming, and they will be carrying crosses, and they'll be stopping at the stations of the cross and praying at all these different locations. And so it's an interesting thing to watch, but it's a beautiful road to walk on, and it's a beautiful place to be and experience. But Jesus would have been taken out of the city, outside of the city walls. It is very true and confusing to some that the Church of the Holy Sepulchre would have been outside of the city walls, and so that is like a false counter. Some people say, well, it's not outside the city wall, so it can't be the church. Well, back then it was outside the city wall, so that's not really a reason to not believe it's the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. But there's other good reasons, and the best to me is just if you go to the north side of the city, you go out of the Damascus Gate to the most populated road, the place where Jesus' crucifixion would have gotten the most face time. There, at the foot of a hill known as Calvary, you can see, boom, right where that cross would have been placed. But they lead him out. They go to crucify him. It says in verse 17, as I was just speaking, and he, bearing his cross, went out to a place, the place of a skull, which is called in Hebrew Golgotha, Skull Hill, where they crucified him and two others with him, one on either side, and Jesus in the center. Some believe in the book of Jeremiah, there's a scene where Israel is being taken away captive, and Jeremiah sits kind of like, not so much a cave, but just like kind of a cup, indentation in the side of a hill, watching as everyone's being taken away captive. Where would that have been? Most likely Golgotha. On the north side of the city, there is the highest point on Mount Moriah, which, again, the Temple Mount is a high point, but it goes higher. If you follow that one mountain ridge, you go up to Calvary. Now, don't ask me if this is supposed to be special or not, but if you look on old maps, ancient maps, like before the modern city, right? Before the modern city has been built in the last 100 years, the elevation of the peak of Calvary is 777 meters. I don't know what to do with that, but 777 is kind of cool. But it's there on that point where you see the skull, you see these indentations, sockets of the eye, and where the mouth would be. I've got a copy of the 100-year-old picture, and it's a beautiful picture where you can very clearly see the skull. Today, it's hard to see the skull. Some people say, well, why is it that, it survived thousands of years and then today you can't see it? Well, you can't see it because there is a Muslim cemetery on the top of the hill, and there is an Arab bus garage at the bottom, and they are continually doing construction, and they could give a crap about Calvary. And so the hill is deteriorating, and it's sad. That's something that's so special to Christians, to have it being kind of eroded away because of the shaking of the earth and the digging in the cemetery and all that stuff. So in the last 100 years, that face has taken a beating. Probably no greater of a beating than Jesus' face took. But inside one of those eye sockets is probably where Jeremiah sat. Because again, the road in front, the cross would have been placed at the foot of the hill, not at the top of the hill. And it would have been down by the road, and we'll probably get some text coming up here that'll help explain that. But it's a view of the Damascus road, and that's the big road heading out to Damascus, which would be the road out to Babylon, where Jeremiah had been watching his people being carried away. But he's carried up to Calvary, Golgotha. Calvary is the Greek, Golgotha is the Hebrew. And they crucified him in the middle of two other criminals. We'll probably dig into that stuff tomorrow. But a lot of interesting facts. I've got some really good stuff here. We can read about pericardial effusions or takasubamyopathy. That'll probably be a couple of days later this week. All the cool stuff. Yeah, very cool stuff coming up. How Jesus died and why I think Jesus died. Not the why like to save our sins, but the physical reason why he passed away. That's a cool thing to investigate and study. So, God bless you guys. Have a great day. And let's enjoy Passion Week this week as we watch, read, and learn about the crucifixion of our Lord and his passion for you and for me. Take care.